Hello, we're here with Fun with Monu-Cad, and I had a couple of questions about color rendering. As you can see, I've got four different components on the screen, and I wanted to show you how to color these and try to do it a little bit slower so that you can follow along. So here we've got a basic cross. We're going to turn our points on. We can see by zooming up that this is all filled, or I'm sorry, it's all drawn correctly. All of our lines connect. There's not much we have to do here. So the simplest way to fill this is to use the autofill AF. Type AF. We select somewhere on the outside of the cross. I'm just going to choose right here. And when we select that, it automatically fills the inside of the cross and the outside. So the point for that, turn our fills off. Our fill point for that's going to be right down here. You can see that. Turn our points off. And we can see the two little red dots here. That shows where our fills are at. Always fills to the bottom left-hand corner. If we right-click on this dot, we'll see that that is labeled as component surface. That's a granite color, and we have that marked as steel. I use a default gray granite for all of that, and typically don't change it. On our outside, we can right click and we see it uses component sandblast lines. These are the two fill groups that you want to use all the time for your components. That way it stays consistent and you can work these into some more advanced fill options later. So once we have that, there's another way that we can fill instead of using the autofill. If I window erase these 2 points, we can also use essentially the old window fill, but we don't use window fill, which was the WF command. Instead, we use F2. Type letter F, number 2, and it says window fill, select first corner. And we can select our object, and it will fill the outside V line. That gives us an option to choose which fill layer that we want. The old window fill command does not allow this ability. So here we're going to choose component sandblast lines, which we have marked as black, and OK that. Now to fill the inside, you could use a seed fill, SD, and choose the inside. And again, choose whichever layer that we want. In this case, we would use component surface. That's using the seed fill on the inside of the cross. Again, autofills one command makes this much simpler. The other option for filling this, we remove the inside. The other way to fill the inside of this cross would be to also use the F2, similar to the window fill command. And what we're going to do, we have this already filled on the outside. We're going to cheat the system, object erase one of the outside lines. Now, when we use the F2 command and we select the same component, it's going to ignore the V line because it's not a closed option, closed component, closed line, and now it fills the inside of the cross and again allows us to do component surface. OK that. When we turn our fills off, we can see our line here is missing. We do single unerase. It brings our line back and we have our component. The reason we showed that way of filling the cross is because when we do the rings over here, if we use a simple autofill command, it fills the inside of these rings, which ideally we want to be able to see through to usually a polished surface. So if we had a polished surface here, and we were to copy these rings up, we want to see polish here. There's no reason to seed fill this and make it polished. That's just more fills that are unnecessary. So what we're going to do here we're going to use our F2 command. We're going to fill the rings, and we're going to use our component sandblast line, which is black. Then we're going to use the F2 command also, but we're going to cheat. We're going to object erase the outside line, which will erase this one. We're also going to object erase an inside line and another inside line, so that these are no longer closed areas. Now when we use our F2 command, it's going to fill the inside, which will be our component surface. I'm going to go back and unerase the 3 lines that we just put in there. And now, as you can see, when we copy these same rings up, we can see through into the polished surface. So this is how we want to create our component with those open spaces. Same thing with this set of grapes. We autofill the outside, and it fills this section. We don't want that, so we want no problems with this. So we're going to erase our 2 fills. You can see it filled over top of itself. So when you have a problem like that, the best way to find it, you can use the select command, select the outside of your object, and you can see it selected most of it. It didn't go all the way around. It's because there's a break here and there's some other problem here. We can exit out of that and go to those areas. We can see this was not trimmed correctly. We can trim this back off, and then come back down here where we noticed there was another problem. And what do we see? This is not trimmed correctly, and neither is this. Move this point back to here. Now we can try to fill this again and see if it'll work. That filled correctly. There's still a couple more problems with this flower. You could leave it as it is, but because I've played with this one already, I know that there's a problem here where these don't connect. By turning on your points, you can see problems pretty easily. You can see where lines don't connect or where they overrun each other. When creating components, it's probably best to go ahead and sort it while you're here. ST, sort your component however you want, and you can autofill it and create your component. So I hope I did that slow enough that you can follow it. If not, you can fast forward, rewind it as necessary. If you have any other questions on filling components, feel free to ask.